I think one of the most interesting panel, because of our forum, on the military-industrial cooperation, and I like the title actually because it's as an element of regional resilience. So if you're talking about resilience and definition of resilience, it's ability of some system to adapt to a new situation, to new conditions, and continue to develop and continue to develop as in normal situation. Why are we talking about the military industrial cooperation? Of course, because of Russian aggression. Of course, because Ukraine living in a state of the war, and Europe actually and the Euro-Atlantic space trying to understand how to live further, because to live in peace conditions very difficult, and especially in case of military industry. So how to change the approach to industry, how to change approach on the political understanding of the situation to give new impulse to defense industry. 1 month ago, I moderated the very similar panel on the Kiev defense industry forum and on the panel of ammunition, with participation of great producers of ammunition from the globe, from United States, Canada, Turkey, Europe, of course, kind of MBDA. And the main thought and the main actually conclusions of this panel was that we cannot live anymore on the peace conditions. So we need to change the understanding of the situation. And of course, another conclusions from this panel was that after the 30 years of romantic and naive understanding of the situation, finally Europe need to change the understanding of Russia, of course, understanding of how to develop armed forces, how to change the doctrines. Because if we're talking about the Ukrainian lessons on the battlefield, now we have absolutely different doctrine if we compare even 2 years ago. Now we have a network-centric warfare with drone-centric warfare, with the huge elements of electronic warfare and all type of IT, and of course even with using of artificial intelligence. It's absolutely different what we had even 2 years or 10 years ago. It's absolutely crucial changes in not only Ukrainian armed forces. And I think that in this case, regional cooperation plays absolutely significant role. In the first days of full-scale aggression of Russia against Ukraine, we had a great support from our neighbors, and including military industry cooperation. I mean that weapons provided to Ukraine. We remember, of course, Poland. We remember Slovakia. Hungary played a different role. Now we will discuss it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present you a great panel with participant of my colleagues. Andras Schatz from Hungary is a senior research fellow at the German Council of Foreign Relations. And of course, now he's presenting German and Hungary. So it's a unique position that I think it's very useful, because German understanding of the Ukrainian support and the Ukrainian cooperation, it's a little bit different that Hungary has now. Attila Demko is the head of the Center for Geopolitics. It's a real colleague of mine, because I'm a director of New Geopolitics Research Network. You're head of the Center for Geopolitics. And Matej Kandrik, head of Chief Executive Director, ADAPT Institute from Slovakia. So we have actually almost full spectrum, except of Poland. But I think that Poland played already so great role to support Ukraine, and we have a lot of project in cooperation. I think that it's a rather optimistic future for Ukraine and Poland in this sphere. So we will discuss our Slovakian and Hungarian prospects, and I think that I hope it will be a pretty provocative discussion, and I ask our auditorium to make questions, to make tough times for participants. Yeah, I think that we've got a lot of information from this address actually, because if we look at the article of Commander-in-Chief of Ukrainian Armed Forces, General Zaluzhny, actually it's connected to this speech. I mean that General Zaluzhny told that compared to last year, when we had a deficit of tanks, armored vehicles, and basic armament, now we need to change our approach to technology. So only technology and a combination of this technology could give us a possibility and capability to make a breakthrough on the front line. Because after the attempts to create conditions on the front line to break through the Russian defensive lines built like in First World War, now we understood that it's not a stalemate, of course, but it's kind of positioning war already on the battlefield. So it looks like electronic warfare, drones, the command and control systems, the, of course, reconnaissance and intelligence system will play more and more significant role. And I'd like to ask Attila, give us please your understanding of the situation in Hungarian defense industry, and of course in your point of view on how Hungary could participate in resilience of our region, because if we're talking about the national strength of defense industry, it's not enough now, for sure. We should be only together if we'd like to answer for threats we have in this global world, which is changing, I would say, every second. So please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and I think, can I have my slides on? I'm gonna surprise you with a few things. As many, I always believe that you always have to look what a country does and not what a country says. And in terms of doing what one of the most important things is military, because this is serious and this is long term. You cannot build a military or 1 or 2 years. You cannot build a military industry in 1 or 2 years. So what you do it for the long time. And the first slide, you can see a German tank, KF-51 Panther. Which country joined this program first? In regional cooperation, that's Hungary. And I think Ukraine is interested. And in terms of which country built up its armament industry in terms of percentages, the biggest or the highest percentage compared to the baseline in this region is Hungary. And all of this armament industry and all of the Hungarian development of its army is based on NATO defense planning process and NATO requirements. It's very important to note. So where was Hungary 5 years ago? There was not much beyond some small arms, military trucks, and some electronic warfare. There was nothing in Hungary in 2017. So what happened? By 2022, there are 3 major factories, including the production of the most modern IFV of the Western world. Maybe Puma is better, but this is really a very new development, the Lynx, and it's already the assembly started in Western Hungary. And by 2027, Hungary will be one of the biggest producers of 155mm artillery shells, and these are needed in all of NATO countries. We will hopefully, of course, the factory for shells is almost ready. The Panther project is just started, but I hope that we're gonna reach even that we will contribute to the production of the latest main battle tank. So altogether there will be a dozen new factories, as I said, from zero by 2027. And all of this was done in regional cooperation, and not by any Eastern country, but by Germany, Czechia, Italy, Turkey, and in some ways with Israel. So what happened? Actually, the armament program was launched in late 2016 after the Warsaw Summit. And it was a surprise because for decades Hungary did nothing in terms of military investment. And what was decided by the government, that you need to do it fast. That's why it was very centralized. And there was a very big openness to the untried, to new technologies. It's always brave to invest in new technologies. Sometimes it's not wise. It always turns out when you try the new technologies on the battlefield, but I think this is the way forward, especially for a country like Ukraine, which is at war. And of course, it was very important that everything was done by joint ventures. So Hungary did not want it to find out anything. We were building on the results of major Western companies, mostly Rheinmetall. And this is maybe also interesting for Ukraine because you are basing your military industrial development to a large part on Rheinmetall, as I hear. And this was originally about $10 billion program, but it's more like in the range of 20. So and it's very important to understand that Hungary did not want only to be an assembly plant, not just to be, where a few workers put together pieces of equipment coming from other factories. So Hungary, first of all, was buying into the development of brand new systems and also built next to the Lynx plant in Zalaegerszeg in Western Hungary, the most modern test facility in Europe, together in cooperation with Rheinmetall for autonomous land systems. It means that also it's good for the KF-4151 to the development of this system, but also for autonomous land systems. So what is proving to be important in Ukraine, not only drones, but basically what I can call land drones. Ukraine is using also land drones, and this is going to be one of the new areas to develop autonomous land systems. And the most modern test range is actually now in Hungary, in Europe. So what are the projects we do? And of course, as I said, Rheinmetall is the major investor. What I said, ammunition factory, it's going to be online in 2024. So in a few months, the factory will be online. Radar systems, it's together with Israel Aerospace Industries. We have the Neural Machina from Turkey, which is an MRAP called Gidran in Hungarian. It's already online, the Airbus helicopters factory. It produces parts, so it's not producing a whole helicopter. But it's so important that it produces parts for a helicopter also used in Ukraine. The 225M version of Airbus helicopter, you're using it also in military and non-military roles. And of course, we started to build, based on Czech license, light weapons in 2019. As I said, the decision was made in 2017, and 2019, the factory started to produce weapons. And what is very interesting, I was told that in the Czech facility, you have twice as many people producing the same amount of weapons. So it was really done with the most modern equipment. What was also done? The Hungarian government acquired the Hirtenberger defense system, which is one of the best mortar factory. And I think if one thing was proven to be important in Ukraine, along with 155 millimeter shells and of course the systems which are using it, are mortars. Mortars are important, good mortars in today's environment. What was also acquired is aerovodohody to a very large percentages. And what is the future? Of course, we are also interested in what is going to be the future in Hungary. One of the main fields we are developing is loitering. We are trying to be part of the development is loitering munition. Let me show you just, these are not plans. So actually these are actual factories. This has a capacity in Zalaegerszeg 45 per annum. So it means that after 4 years it can contribute to exports. This is Gidran. It will have two assembly places. One is Győr, Rába, and Part of the project will be done in Kaposvár. And this is, I think, the most important for a regional perspective, which is ammunition. Rheinmetall Hungary ZRT, which will produce ammunition for Panzerhaubitze or any other system which uses 155 millimeter rounds, 120 millimeter rounds for Leopard, and 30 millimeter rounds for the Lynx. So basically, we built, and actually this factory is built now. It doesn't start production yet, but I will show you the pictures. It's already on. It can serve all the weapon systems which we use in the army. And of course, it will be working 24/7, and it can contribute to lower the lack of 155 millimeter shells, which is a big problem in Europe. We saw European Union promised 300,000 a million shells to Ukraine. 300,000 was delivered. So this is small arms. And of course, this is important mostly for Hungary. And this is Airbus. It's already producing the parts. It's in Eastern Hungary. And of course, the manufacturing and repairing of radar systems together with Rheinmetall Canada and the Israeli company. And this is old Raba, which is military trucks, and also this is old, which is ammunition factory. And I think this is one of the most interesting, that Hungary acquired 80% of Aero Vodohody, which is a Czech company. Of course, it will not be moved from the Czech Republic, but we will work together, and Hungary will acquire knowledge on this field, which was missing from Hungarian skill set for a long time. And I think together with Czech Republic, we can, or Czech friends, we can make it even more successful, this plane. And what is the new investors? And these are brand new, or at least this one is a brand new agreement. Beretta will produce NATO ammunition, and Dynamite Noble Defense will produce anti-tank weapons, which are also proven very important on the Ukrainian battlefield. RGV-19 and Panzerfaust 3. I think RGV-19, RGW-19 was used very extensively in Ukraine and with great success against Russian armor. There are also some Hungarian innovation. We started our own, and this is a private company, drone industry, and this is one of the most interesting drones, which is basically a jet drone with a speed of 500 kilometers per hour, 75 kilometer range. It can go further, but then you cannot maneuver it. And it can, right now in this format, it can mimic itself as a fighter plane. So you can imagine, for example, if there is like 5 or 10 of this, and the enemy, let's say a big country to the east of Ukraine, sees 5 or 10 coming into their direction and shoots them down. But it would just shoot down drones. But on their radars, they would show us real fighter planes. And what I told at the beginning, so all this started basically in 2017, and now you can see real pictures. So these are not computer-generated pictures. These are the factories which are ready. I'm not saying that all of them are producing. The most important one, again, is ammunition and explosives, and that will produce from next year. And this is because we can always say that, of course, Hungary will never be able to fully autonomously make a system like the Lynx or the KF-51. Can be only done in cooperation. But ammunition, I think we can contribute to the common good, because there is no security for one country. It's regional security. And whatever is being made, 155 millimeter shells will be used by NATO weapons. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Very impressive presentation. And could you explain? Is it possible that this ammunition will be in Ukraine? I mean, to support Ukrainian defense?
It's a very good question. What I can tell you, of course, I'm not privy to political thinking, but it was never said by anyone in Hungary that weapons produced in Hungary cannot go to Ukraine. It was only said that Hungarian weapons, which are in the Hungarian military or in stock, will not go to Ukraine. But if it's a Rheinmetall made weapon, but if it goes to Poland, and the Polish 155 millimeter round goes to Ukraine, this is the same thing. Maybe physically it's not the Hungarian 855, but this is, in reality, as I said, there is no such a thing as one country. It's European security, and if a shell is made, or if 100,000 shells, I don't know what will be the production rate, but it will be tens of thousands of shells. It's already improving the security of Europe, whether if it's used in Ukraine or in somewhere in stock, because you need stocks. No country will ever give Ukraine its full stock. It never happens. So it can fill up European stock in the future. We don't know. Of course, it's even possible. It was never said that weapons made in Hungary cannot end up in Ukraine, as far as I know, by politicians. I don't know if it's a yes or no, but there was no denial of such an idea.
Thank you very much, Attila. And actually, what we could see in Slovakia, it's the transformation of some words from the "we never will give Ukraine the weapon." Now we have a transformation to which is in the storages. So it means that actually the producing of new weapon, for example, artillery system, will be in Ukraine. I hope so. So please, Matej, explain us what is going on in Slovakia now, because it's a very interesting processes which is influencing, of course, on military industry. Thank you very much.
Sure, I would do my best. My country indeed became a source of troubling news lately, especially for Ukraine. I believe, all remember statements as no single bullet to Ukraine, no to any military support or help, etc., etc. But just yesterday, our new Minister of Foreign Affairs, Juraj Blanár, at visiting Prague, announced that these previous statements are not going to meddle, or they are not part of the commercial deals which are already taking place. And to be honest, Slovak defense industry is already booming. Companies are reporting record profits. To give you also some numbers to illustrate it, state-owned Konstrukta Defense, which is the company producing famous Zuzana howitzers, increased its year-on-year sales by 33% to 84.6 million euros just last year. Its net profit went up by 921% from less than 1.4 million euros in 2021 to last year, when it was almost 14 million euros. So Slovak defense industry is doing well, and certainly it would be a no-brainer, if I can say so, for the current government to meddle with this, because it will cost jobs, it will cost companies, but also the state on the contractual sanctions included in those contracts. And of course, it would be damage heavily reputation of Slovakia as a reliable partner. Again, rhetoric before elections and after elections can differ greatly, and I'm happy this is also the case in Slovakia. And now I would like to go more into details on some projects which are already taking place between Ukraine and Slovakia. And I think it's good case studies to mention cooperation, memorandum of cooperation. Seen bit already mentioned Konstrukta Defense and the Kramatorsk heavy machine tool building plant on joint development of completely new 155 millimeter howitzer and modernization of Ukrainian Bohdana artillery platform. This is already taking place, and these companies are talking to each other very intensively to move on with this project. Also, the S Holding, which is part of the DMD Group, also a joint stock company, with the state majority, invested only in this year 30 million euros to increase its ammunition production, which is this year was set to 50,000 shells per year, and it's projected to grow to 150,000 in 2025. Also, there is Way Industries company producing quite famous demining system Bozena, which will be in broader sense, the mining systems will be crucial for Ukraine in coming years. So industry is booming, companies are making great profits, and there are already several projects between Slovakia and Ukraine developing closer ties in terms of production, but also research and development, which is very important next step. And now, if I may, I would like also suggest a couple of points going a bit broader than just staying in the region, because to be honest, we need European Union participation to fixing the really strategic stuff in here. And what is important to say, to have a couple of key points, and sorry for making mess. Right, Ukraine is and will be a strategic pillar of European defense. And as such, it must be built on very credible military power with broad spectrum of capabilities and robust capacities. And to have such a military power, there is no way other than build a key component, which is comprehensive industrial policy. And comprehensive industrial policy is not just buying. It's about having means to produce, innovate, maintain, and research and development. And I honestly believe that our strategic imperative is to create production capacities of Ukrainian defense industry to be self-sufficient to meet the needs of the armed forces of the Ukraine in these key areas as artillery, speaking both ammunition and platforms, air defense, long-range weapons, the mining systems, UAV and the counter-UAV capabilities, and heavy armor. And as Attila mentioned before, key element to do this is or can be joint ventures. And I believe, honestly, between creation of joint ventures between Ukrainian and European defense companies to bridge existing gaps and to unlock the potential for new production capacities and innovations. We should start small. We should start with developing joint maintenance and repair capabilities to cover platforms which are already delivered and deployed in Ukraine with success. Second step would be focused on, or should be focused on, changing or rethinking the current model when the European Union is funding procurement for Ukraine into the model where EU should intensify and procure from these newly created joint production entities. Ukraine's role in these partnerships should be based on its experienced workforce, sophisticated engineering, and most of all, those all inevitable lessons from the battlefield, which can be used to make produced weapons much more efficient and deadly in the end, which is something where we need to create the qualitative technological edge for Ukraine and for the Europe. European contribution should be, of course, coming with the cutting-edge technology and capital need to finance to creating all these new production capacities. And important thing to realize is for success of such endeavor, we can't avoid or we can't escape the business logic behind all this. And the success will hinge on really solid multi-year contracts, because only contracts will provide the stability and predictability both for state-owned or private enterprises to secure investments. And with these investments, then we can build, equip, and staff new production sites and assembly facilities. So going in this direction, I think we create also space to start thinking more clearly about two important questions, two maybe even strategic questions. And those are, in my opinion, where does Ukraine fit within the European Union's vision of strategic autonomy? And how can we integrate Ukraine into the EU's defense, technological and industrial base in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matej. And I think that you mentioned several very important things, and especially what I like more the contracts, the budgeting, and the planning of the development of defense industry. Because of course it's impossible to develop something, especially so, let's say, complicated like a defense industry, without planning on several years, with solid contracts, with very solid budgeting. And actually we had a lot of discussion on it. Maybe we should, if you're talking about the NATO and the European Union, maybe we should have a kind of joint contingency planning for all of our countries in the sphere of defense industry, because we have some contingency planning on the operational use of our forces, but in the same time we don't have any contingency planning on defense industry development. And now what we have after the 24th of February 2022, that we found that our defense industry still living in the peacetime, but unfortunately we are living on the wartime. And to adapt defense industry to new times, it need a lot of investments, a lot of let's say steps for all of countries, and it take time again. So we're still trying to let's say scaling of the production of ammunition, but it's take times. I mean that even next year, I hope it will be a crucial year for ammunition on the level of NATO and European Union. And Matej told that Slovakia will be triple of the production of ammunition for 1 year. So it will be 2025 when you produce the 150,000 shells for internal and external use. And so I think that Andras, what do you think about this contingency plan, and what are your let's say estimation of our colleagues' presentations, and what is your forecast for development of our regional cooperation, and of course in the framework of European Union and NATO? Because even we're talking about the regional cooperation, of course we are part of Euro-Atlantic space, and only together we can answer for these threats what we have globally. Now, Andras, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for joining us again after the coffee break. And before I start, there is kind of a compulsory footnote I always need to make. This compulsory footnote is that whatever I'm going to say here constitutes solely and exclusively my own private opinion, so shall not be considered as the official position of the German Council on Foreign Relations or any entity or state. When it comes to interdependence, or when it comes to defense relations between Central Europe and Ukraine, or this part of Central Europe, here one needs to start, I think, with a definition. How do we define Central Europe? And sitting in Lviv, it would be quite absurd to say that Ukraine is not part of Central Europe. I mean, evidently, we are here in Central Europe, so my presentation is going to use the definition when we speak about defense industrial relations in Central Europe, with Ukraine included. And in order to assess the current situation, it's useful to look at the long-term trends, because in times of war, it's absolutely natural to focus just on the actual reality. But long-term trends, the assessment of long-term trends does help. So if you start, or if we take a look at how defense industrial relations between Ukraine and the West developed after 1991. I used open source data, the CIPRI arms transfer database, so I kind of put together some numbers about defense industrial relations between Ukraine and the West. Before 2014, dear colleagues, defense industrial relations between Ukraine and the West practically did not exist, or it was on a very, very low level. There were only two Western countries, or two countries of today's NATO which purchased some weapons from Ukraine. This was North Macedonia during the 2001 crisis. Macedonia has purchased attack helicopters, Sukhoi 25 jet, but in very small numbers. Another country which made some substantial procurement from Ukraine, this was Slovakia. BMP-2s, 2 Albatros jets, but again, very, very small numbers. And before 2014, yes, I mean, there were marginal procurements from Croatia, marginal procurements from Estonia, but literally a few pieces of equipment. Situation and before 2014, Ukraine got no Western weapon systems at all. So before 2014, practically nothing happened. Or defense industrial cooperation were very, very limited. This started to change after 2014, but again, this took time. But there was a gradual intensification between 2014, so between the start of the war with the Crimea and the full-scale escalation in last February, the number of countries supplying Ukraine with weapons started to grow, remember, from zero. Between 2014 and 2022, there were altogether 9 countries which were openly providing Ukraine with weapons. The word openly matters here. The 9 countries, Poland, Czechia, Canada, France, Lithuania, United Arab Emirates, US, UK, and Turkey. There were some other countries contributing tacitly, but still, compared to zero, this was a bit bigger, but compared to what we have now, this was still minuscule. And of course, after 2014, Ukraine was not exporting practically anything to the West, except a few air-to-air missiles to countries which operated or still operating Soviet fighter jets. And then started the full-scale escalation. And this, colleagues, this has been a game changer. Since then, defense industrial cooperation and defense industrial ties between Ukraine and the West have been skyrocketing. I mean, if we take only the open information, right now there are 28 countries supplying Ukraine with weapons, practically all EU and NATO countries, with some very, very few exceptions. Even our Luxembourg allies have contributed with anti-tank weapons. So nearly the whole EU and NATO is supplying Ukraine with weapons bilaterally, plus, as Mihailo said, there are also the multilateral formats, the military assistance from NATO, the procurements done from the EU peace facility, and some other formats. So right now we have 28 countries which are openly supplying Ukraine with weapons, and a few more countries which supply Ukraine with weapons, just don't do it openly. So you don't find it in the CIPRI register, but you find those weapon systems in the battlefield. To give you a few examples, Finland, Israel, Serbia, and a number of other countries. So the real number is way above 30. And I mean, regarding Germany, for example, colleagues, had anybody told me 2 years ago that Germany would send tanks into an ongoing war, I surely wouldn't have believed it. Germany itself made a big step forward. Remember last January, half of the world was laughing at the German military assistance, sending 5,000 helmets to Ukraine. You remember, the whole thing started from 5,000 helmets. Where are we at the moment? Depending on how you count, Germany is the second or the third largest supplier of Ukraine when it comes to weapon systems. This is huge. And of course, it took time. It takes time because of logistical reasons, and both Attila and Mate know it much better than I do. And there have always been political elements. As surprising as it may sound to some of you, let's say in the German case, sending tanks was politically very, very sensitive. And to be frank, German artillery systems do a lot more killings than tanks will ever do. But still, politically, the tanks were the sensitive story. Because for large parts of the German electorate, the very question that German tanks on the Ukrainian steppes killing Russians again, this was something that was still very, very sensitive for a large part of the German society. Yet still, the threshold has been passed, and the threshold will be passed. Please don't ask me questions about the Taurus. I honestly don't know. And very many people does. And when it comes to the result of these large weapons deliveries and very diverse weapon deliveries, Dear colleagues, right now, Ukraine is operating, when it comes to armaments, the most diverse army in the world when it comes to arms system used. I tried to make a counting, and hopefully Mihailo will correct me. Ukraine is using 11 different types of tanks, at least 15 different types of infantry fighting vehicles, at least 38 different types of self-propelled and towed artillery systems, in addition to multiple launch rocket systems, and not less than 64 different types of armored personnel carriers. That's huge. And you know the logistical complexities. Some of you that knows the logistical complexities much better than I do. And it was, as it was said already by Mate, significant part of the repairs, particularly when it comes to structural repairs, it has to be done abroad. And this created a lot of interdependence, such kind of interdependence, which did not exist even a year ago. Because damaged equipment, particularly damaged Western equipment, if the damage is heavy, can't really be repaired in Ukraine or only in very small quantities. New repair plants have been set up, or new repair plants have been operating in Poland, in Lithuania, and more is to come, Romania and also other countries. So it's not only the delivery of weapon systems, but also the maintenance and the repair of weapon systems, which is creating brand new forms of interdependency. Such a level of interdependency and such a density of interdependency, which was unimaginable, possibly even a year ago. So this interdependency is going to last. And Rheinmetall was mentioned already, and you know it again much better than I do. Less than a month ago, Rheinmetall signed the agreement with Ukraine defense industry, the former Ukroboronprom, about a joint venture, setting up a joint venture, 51% Rheinmetall, 49% Ukraine. And this facility is going to operate on Ukrainian soil. This is a big step forward. This is not doing maintenance abroad, and it takes a month to repair a damaged Panzerhaubitze at least. This is a facility that is going to be set up on Ukrainian soil. No need to discuss the exact location, no need to discuss the parameters, but such a scale of investment, it's actually a step forward. Some other joint ventures are already online. Matej mentioned the joint venture between Slovakia and the Kharkiv defense plant on the Bogdana system. A lot more is to come. The interesting thing about the Rheinmetall facility to be built is that one needs to protect one's investment. So comes the question, how this Rheinmetall plant will be protected against, of course, Russian air and missile strikes. One possible solution, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but one possible solution is the deployment of Rheinmetall's own short-range air defense systems, the Mantis, of course in full cooperation with the Ukrainian state. If this variant materializes, and again I don't know, but if it does, it would mean that a NATO country, an EU country, in cooperation with Ukraine, takes over the protection of a small part of Ukraine's airspace, namely the airspace around the production facility or the repair facility. This is already quite a change even compared to where we have been a year ago. Again, this is a story in the making, but still, this is probably a first step, and a lot more such joint ventures will come. And when it comes, my next point, and also reflecting to what was said before, when it comes to defense industrial cooperation, dear colleagues, it's not only large sums of money involved, but really large construction projects are involved. These things are not set up in one day and not cancelled in one day either. Meaning, I would advise that some caution is necessary when we try to assess declarations of individual politicians of not delivering weapons anymore. No need to name names here, we all know the names. Particularly when these declarations take place in election campaigns. Dear colleagues, no need to overestimate them, and particularly no need to overhype them. These are long-term projects with hundreds of millions of euros, possibly billions of euros involved. These don't get cancelled like this. And yes, in some cases, the details get refined. From no bullets ever delivered, now it looks a lot more rational. And my last 2 points here, again, in full unison with what you said about the importance of business logic. Dear colleagues, the scale of the investments we are talking about, this is not only about the war. This is also about the future Ukrainian army after the victory, whatever shape that victory will look like. Because the future Ukrainian army will have to get rid of most of the inherited ex-Soviet systems. Decisive majority of those ex-Soviet systems will be destroyed by then or become unrepairable. Spare parts supply is basically zero because Russia is not going to deliver and Ukraine wouldn't accept it. And Ukrainian heavy defense industry suffered very serious losses during the war, and the war is not yet over. So even in the medium run, after the war, after the victory, Ukrainian army is already undergoing a rearmament process to Western-made weapons and Ukrainian-made weapons. There's a lot of synergy here, and business logic will dominate this. Whichever shape and timing the victory will take place, however it will look like, but the new Ukrainian army will decisively rely on Western-made air force, Western-made artillery, Western-made land systems, with Ukrainian production involved, but still this is going to establish a lot closer cooperation than anybody could have imagined even 2 years before. And my last point here, when it comes to interdependence, after the war, Ukrainian defense industry will again come online, also as an exporter of weapons. Ukraine is already producing some systems which would be very competitive also on the world market had there been no war. When it comes, let's say, to naval drones, Ukraine's naval drone capacities are of quite high level. When it also comes to low detection, long-range unmanned aerial vehicles, that's also kind of world-class. The Bogdana system also has a lot of potential. So once after the war, in the long run, or even medium run, Ukrainian defense industry will return to the world market. Because before the war, and again, you know it much better than I do, Ukraine was a substantial player on the world arms export market. Once the war will be over, this market access may come back, or will come back quite certainly. So when I'm trying to end my presentation here, compared to what we have, or what we have had before 2014, practically zero connections. Or between 2014 and 2022, slowly growing but still very limited connections and cooperation. What we are heading towards is lasting massive interdependence between Ukrainian defense, Ukrainian armed forces, and Western armed forces. So my last sentence here, I think the new norm is interdependence. And this interdependence is actually a security guarantee for the whole of Europe, including Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andros. And you just added to all of these comprehensive reports and comprehensive picture. And I just want to add that I think that after victory, we will change not only Ukrainian armed forces, but of course armed forces of all of our countries. It's definitely because of the lessons of this war, and of course the experience of Ukrainian armed forces will be very useful on doctrinal level, on the organizational level. For example, in Ukraine now, in every brigade we have a strike UAV company. No country in the world has such a unit inside of every brigade. And this is the strike capabilities, which is absolutely new for the battlefield. And I think that every country in the NATO will use these lessons and on the doctrinal organizational level, because it's not only defense industry, but it's changing absolutely understanding of the armed forces. And our trends now to change technology should change the human being on the battlefield. That soldiers, why we need mobilize 100,000 soldiers if we have 1 million FPV drones, for example. By the way, Ukraine now using like 10,000 FPV drones per month, and the next year will be, I hope that 30,000 per month. It's absolutely fantastic numbers, but I think that it will be useful for all of us. I mean, for all of countries in our region to get this experience. Now I'd like to ask auditorium, you guys make some questions, interesting and provoking questions to our guests. Okay, Amar, please. We have a microphone. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. So good. Time bomb.
Yeah, it works.
Thank you so much for a really fascinating panel. I'm Omar Ashur, just a friend of Ukraine. So this is just quickly a question on this is a generic one, and then one for Attila. 2 questions. The generic one is so the European governments started issuing contracts for their own defense companies very late compared to the Americans, for example. So anyone can explain why? And given all what you mentioned in terms of the benefits of military cooperation and in terms of the security threats, basically. And then the second one is for Attila. So mass matters. We know that. So can you mention the quantities? You mentioned the 155s and the 120s, like the capacities of the Hungarian defense industry to produce in terms of figures, and then the range, like between 10,000 at least to 50,000 artillery shells per day in exchanges. So that was the range. And then also, are there any leftovers from the Soviet and the Russian systems in Hungary in terms of the arsenal? And finally, to Andreas, you mentioned Serbia and Israel. So any types of weapon systems you can mention if it's not classified? Thank you.
Okay, please answer, because it's a very concrete question, very short answers.
So as leftovers from Soviet systems, so Hungary is changing from Soviet systems almost completely to Western systems, but still there are about 500 plus BTR-80s, including about 200 BTR-80As with 30 millimeter cannon. There are about 300 pieces of D-20 152 millimeter howitzers, towed howitzers, but only 12 is in use now. And there are some other systems, radars, some radar systems, some anti-tank systems. But basically, all these systems are going to be either in stock or sold or used by. We have a reserve force of 20,000 used by the reserve force. I'm not making the decisions. I'm doing research on geopolitics and trying to predict the future. I would advise to keep everything as the direction the world is going is not very positive, but it's not my decision. As for the numbers, these are the numbers Rheinmetall knows how much they will produce in the Varpalota facility, but I can tell you it's 4 square kilometers, so it's a small city. It's going to be big, definitely not 10,000 a day. I don't think there is such a facility that can produce 155 millimeter shells a day, but it's going to be big, but I cannot give you answers. I don't think it's even a public number. And as for the other systems, 120 millimeter. As for the Berettites, again, we don't know, but the general view is the bigger the better now in Hungary, since the situation not only in the east but in the south, and basically wherever we look, except maybe for the sky or the moon, it's not getting better.
Andras?
Thank you. When it comes to your first question, Omar, I mean, Western governments were late with the long-term contracts. Definitely, yes. Probably, I don't know, of course, the answer for all the governments. But in many cases, providing weapons from your stockpiles is one thing, because the stockpiles you already have. And allocating huge sums of public money from your budget for the production of new weapons, this requires a different political decision. When the full-scale escalation started, many Western governments were very quick to take the first decision, hoping to prevent a full-scale disaster to happen. I mean, the collapse of Ukraine, which fortunately managed. But still, giving the long-term contracts to the defense industries, this requires long-term decision, long-term commitment, and very, very intensive political debates. Because if you decide to put an order of hundreds of millions of euros from your budget, you have to cut that money from somewhere else. So I think this is the key element why the West was slow. But yes, I agree, the West was terribly slow and is still not quick enough. When it comes to your second question, Serbia has been documented, and of course I'm telling only open source information. Serbia has been delivering 120mm mortar shells, not directly, but through intermediaries. Serbia also delivered ammunition for artillery systems, small arms ammunition, and a lot of other things, using neighboring countries or Western Balkan countries as intermediaries. It functions fairly well. When it comes to Israel, Israel publicly hasn't delivered anything, but there have been Israeli-made armored personnel carriers spotted on the battlefield, and there is sporadic information about electronic warfare cooperation. In the Finnish case, Finland didn't declare any kind of support, but there have been Finnish-made weapon systems spotted on the battlefield, sometimes weapon systems that could come from somewhere else, but have the Finnish camouflage. So there are some countries which do not declare the support, they just deliver it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, sure. It's a Rammstein format. So in the Rammstein format, we have more than 50 countries, and sometimes it's appear in the very specific camouflage, even without any announcements of these contracts. Please.
Yes, good afternoon, Igor Berlin, Detector Media. I have a question about technology. Actually, it's all about the sharing of from partners to Ukraine military technologies, and when we are talking about AUKUS or other military cooperation in the world, it's all about technology. And how do you see, are NATO countries ready to share the technologies, not just weapons, tanks, artillery, whatever, but technology? And how to secure it from such countries as China, Iran, because we know all the stories that Shaheds were constructed in the UK universities and all that all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Who want to answer? Matej, what do you think?
Would do my best. First of all, I would say I wouldn't definitely underestimate Ukrainian technological capabilities, research and development at the universities and specialized research centers. Country is more than capable to develop its own technologies, especially what we see in area of UAVs or on naval drones, etc. I mean, the search is just incredible. And about the sharing of the technologies with the NATO countries, of course, this is always a sensitive issue. But if you are looking at the platforms or system delivered, which are already deployed here, many of those platforms, they're already having crucial and sensitive technology built in. So we already entrusted the country with operating the system. Of course, it's something the else operating the system and giving, the technological documentation with all those specifics, etc., etc. Still, yes, some things can be re-engineered, reverse engineered, and so on and so on. But I would say there is the trust which can build upon already there, and it's signed by the commitment of the countries which are standing behind Ukraine. Unfortunately, maybe too slowly, but we are there. So I wouldn't be afraid in this area that much.
Andras?
Just a short thing to add, to extrapolate your question a bit. I don't think it's realistic to expect any Western country to share the most modern, most up-to-date technology. The reason is simple. Nobody wants his technology to fall into enemy hands. When it comes to the javelins, for example, the javelins Ukraine has received, these are the older models. These are the outgoing models. The newest models of the javelin have not been delivered. And there are several such limitations, but still, even these weapon systems constitute a frog leap compared to the previous technological level. And it's very important what Matej said, that already in the weapon systems delivered, there is a huge amount and diversity of technology which has already been entrusted upon Ukraine. So with certain limitations, I think this level of technological share will continue. Sharing will continue.
Attila?
First of all, I think in some fields we can learn from Ukraine, both doctrine and technology. Completely agree with that. In some other fields, I think Europeans will be more ready to share technology than Americans. Americans are really big about sharing their best technologies. Ukraine has to buy into development of weapon system, and if you buy into the development of a system, then some of the technology will be shared for you for sure, and then you will be part of the development of that system. So I think KF-51, Ukraine is interested. That can be one system which Ukraine can learn new technologies to turn away from the Russian or Soviet technologies and be one of the hubs of development. But generally, I am very skeptical of the West sharing the latest, especially of the Americans, the latest technologies and systems.
Yeah, actually, I could add that if we're talking about the Rheinmetall, for example, or Slovakian-Ukrainian cooperation, we'll already make our joint R&D, especially like Bogdana and Susanna, let's say, next generation of the artillery system, and the same Rheinmetall. It's impossible to make a joint venture without R&D agreement and, of course, NDA agreement to continue the cooperation. Talking about the really sensitive technology, it depends. I mean, depends on the situation. And to be honest, Ukraine now has a lot of technologies, especially in UAV, especially in sea drones, and if you're talking about even missiles. You know, the Neptune missiles, it could be a absolutely great product for our regional market. Because, well, for example, Romania. I think that Romania could be a customer for Neptune. Why not? Because I'm sure it will be cheaper than American or European missiles. And now Ukraine has already 700 kilometers missiles. We don't know the name, we don't know a specification, but I think it will be great for our neighbors to get this missile, and it means that we will share our technologies, and of course in answer from our neighbors we will get something from them. So I think step by step we will build a confidence, a trust, and finally we'll have a joint production of and R&D, of course, in different spheres. For example, we will have the exchange of intelligence information on electronic warfare, and we're already getting some information from our allies. Of course, it's impossible to use our missile without support and target acquisition from our allies, of course. Maybe somebody else. Gennady, please.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting, good presentations. I have a couple of questions, short, but I think it's important also to mention. We talked about cooperation, regional cooperation, bilateral cooperation, but we didn't talk much about European level. So I think it's important because money is there. And I would say, this is like my prediction, the first country from the region who takes Ukraine by hand and just walk into European industry programs with billion budgets for long-term periods, it will be calling shots in the region. Because at the moment, PESCO, EDF, EDIRPA, others, they're closed for just full-fledged participation from Ukrainian side. It's only about political will at the moment. So because Ukraine is not only consumer, it's a contributor with its own technologies, as Mikhailo pointed out. That's my comment. But my question is, do you have information about joint acquisition of ammunition from the region, from V4 countries? Do you have some recent cases of this? Because basically it's an issue on Brussels level, just how to foster this joint acquisition of ammunition and weapons. Another issue, great project on my side, Germany proposed this air defense shield, but there are two positions, one of France, one of Germany. Which one is closer to you when it comes? Because I think shield is something necessary for defense.
Great questions. Who wants to answer? Andras, could you start?
See, when it comes to joint acquisition of ammunition and the weapons on the Visegrad level, nothing like this is happening. Nothing like this is going to happen anytime soon, I'm afraid. The Visegrad countries, with the notable exception of Hungary, have been supportive collectively to the European Defence Fund and the financing of this procurement. And when it comes to the longer terms, and Attila mentioned also the United States, I think one important particularity regarding the near future is that, the military supply from the military aid from the US is most probably likely to prevail. But the financial help from the US may very well decrease, which may lead to the situation that Europe would need to contribute more to the financing of Ukraine when it comes actually to cash flow of the budget. Right now, this 1.5 billion per month, in order to keep the budget supplied with cash flow, this amount may get higher depending on the future, depending on the changes of the US financing. But to again answer your question in short, no such cooperation on the V4 level, so no regional cooperation. These things are going to be done on the EU level. When it comes to NATO level, NATO as an alliance is not providing any lethal military aid, and I don't think that this is going to change. So the aid NATO is providing has all been non-lethal, but ranging from cyber security to demining training, a lot of things, but not weapons provided by NATO level. This is going to stay the same.
Attila?
So V4 tried several times to procure whether radar systems, upgrading of Mi-24 helicopters, etc. Right? And we always found out that one country needs this and the other country needs that. So it wasn't really working. But there is a V4 battle group. There was cooperation with Ukraine. There is cooperation with Ukraine within the battle group. So I think there can be a cooperation on a V4 level with Ukraine. I don't know what is the situation now. In my time when I was in the MOD, there was cooperation with Ukraine on a V4 level.
I remember actually, 1 second. I remember just, the 2010, 2012, when they were huge decreasing on the budget. It was ideas on 4v4, like use the Nordic countries experience. And it was a lot of researchers, even ideas, even programs, but as I know, that nothing happened.
Very few things happened. We were going around. I was one of the team. We were going around Finland, Sweden, Norway to learn how they do it. It wasn't the lack of will; it was more the practicality. So the V4 is more like a political grouping. There is some military aspects, but I think it will not be a major platform. It can bring Ukraine in with the battle group into European defense.
Matej, please.
I would follow the question on the air defense. From Slovakia perspective, it's definitely the German initiative, the European Sky Shield. Slovakia already confirmed it would like to contribute and participate. Recently, Slovakia announced that we will be purchasing Israeli RAW air defense system, and I'm pretty sure we will stick with Germany, and that's because since the invasion, our defense military cooperation, which with Germany expanded really tremendously. There will be presence of German troops in Slovakia with the air defense system, participation on the NATO battle group, sharing of the system, Mantis, and so on. So, getting Leopard tanks from the Germany for the exchange for the BTRs going to Ukraine. So, in this very short period, our ties and relations with Germany in this specific area growth really expansionally, and I believe even the new government is not going to change anything about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we're talking about the air defense. It's I just remind you that before the 24 February, for example, Germany had Iris-T system, but it was only for exhibitions. And after this, Ukraine was the first customer. Now IRIS-T should be one of the main component of European shield in air defense and actually missile defense, because it has some capabilities. I think our time is over, and me personally had a great time with you guys. So please make applause, and thank you very much.